All right, now let's move on to something called brute force. This is kind of exactly what it sounds like. It's just making multiple attempts at trying to access something. Okay, it's like trying to kick a door in by brute force. You kick it a few times and it doesn't open. Keep kicking it until it finally opens, right? It's the same kind of an idea here. It's generally applied to credentials, though. And with this, you're trying to guess passwords. So usernames really are not hard to find. A lot of companies have standardization. So in my name, it might be James.Conrad, or it might be J. Conrad, or something like that. Those really are not that hard to guess or find. So really, what we'll often try to find is the password itself. So what can we do? Well, we might try to do some social engineering to try to get someone's password, or we might try to learn something about someone, stalk their social media accounts and find out what their hobbies are. Maybe we can find the birth dates of people that are important to them. Maybe we can find the date of their anniversary, stuff like that. I just celebrated my 35th anniversary, people. Yeah, 35 years. So maybe 35 is part of my password, right? Actually, no, I couldn't even remember how many years I'd been married until my wife reminded me many times. Anyway, so what we do here is we guess. So what is their date of birth? Maybe it's 01, 3198. So maybe that's their password. And we'll try that and see if it works. Doesn't work, we'll go on to the next thing. What's their spouse's password? Maybe 05, 28, 99, something like that. Of course, these are all just numbers. What's their pet's name? My dog's name is Samson. Oops, it's supposed to be an M. S-O-N. And I don't know when he was born. Let's just say it was 2015. Okay, maybe that's the password. If that doesn't work, we'll move on to something else. So you can see that could be pretty laborious, but that would qualify as brute force. Really just multiple guesses against their passwords. Rarely, if ever, works out unless you're trying to guess the password for someone that's got very simple methods. Okay, so instead what we'll very often use is a dictionary. Now, these dictionaries can be many, many megabytes or even gigabytes really in size, and you'll usually use an automated tool that will apply a password with a username that until it finally gets a correct guess, and then it logs you in or opens the application or opens the file or does whatever it is that it's supposed to be able to do. Now, there's a lot of things in operating systems that could prevent that from happening. So, for example, in Windows, usually it's 5 password guesses in an Active Directory system, 5 password guesses, and after the 5th one, if you didn't get it right, it'll lock that account usually for 30 minutes. And that's adjustable. You can make it a different duration. So then you have to wait 30 minutes before you can even try again. Even if you're the legitimate user, you have to sit around the water cooler for 30 minutes or take a break in the break room for 30 minutes. Or you can call IT and have them unlock your account for you. Some people are too embarrassed to do that, so they'll just take a break instead. Anyway, so that's one way to do it. The other way to do it would be a rainbow table, which is similar to dictionary. I don't really have one that I can show you because it's encoded, but I can show you this. Okay, so here's a rainbow table that I downloaded, and it extracted into multiple parts right here. But this is the smallest one I could find. And what is it? Okay, it is actually just hashes of multiple passwords. So I'm just going to Google for online hash generator and go to one and show you what I'm talking about here. So let's say that this is my password, and I'll just say P@SSWZORD. Obviously a dumb password, but regardless. I'm going to go ahead and generate a hash for this password, and there it is. Okay, so that's using bcrypt, which is one version of a hash generator, and you can put in other factors here. But anyway, the main idea here is our password itself is usually not sent across the wire, okay, across the network or anything like that. So I could be logging onto a network resource, but it's not going to send that literally across the password as a password. So instead, it's going to send this representation of the password, which you can see down here, and that therefore it's obfuscated. Okay, no one can tell just by looking at the network traffic exactly what that is. However, what they could do is they could take this hash and they might be able to send the hash to a destination and say, I know this isn't the actual password, but it's a representation of the password. And is that good enough? Yeah, maybe it is. So some systems will just recognize the hash and allow access. This is also known as pass the hash. Okay? So anyway, that's the basic idea there is we have some kind of a hash of a password. Now, What the rainbow table is it's a gigantic collection of hashed passwords. Okay. In fact, this rainbow table, let's look at the properties of it. I can't remember exactly how big it is, but it's the smallest one I could find. Oh, and it's 6 gigabytes. And it's just a collection of those hashes. So anyway, you can throw a bunch of those hashes at a system to see when one eventually is accepted. And if it is, then you know that you've guessed the correct password. Now, again, this is done programmatically. There's a utility. Actually, let me go back to that. Utility here in this case, it's called Rainbow Crack. It's a very common cracking tool that's used for rainbow tables. So anyway, that's another method that's used. Another thing that could be used would be credential stuffing. So maybe we found a username as a hacker. We found a user and a password that works, but it's against a site we don't really care about. It's against a hobby site that someone has. You know, I like to hike, so maybe there's a hiking website that someone found a username and a password to, but there's no financial data, personal data. It's just a list of someone's favorite hikes or whatever. Well, since they use that username and password against something that they care about, which is their hiking website, maybe they're also using that same username and password against their banking website. So I'm going to take this same username and password that I discovered and log on to Wells Fargo or Bank of America or something like that and see if I can log in as that. And if I can, that was a pretty good guess, right? Well, that's credential stuffing. We just use a known username and password that we were able to find against one site and use it against something else. Maybe I'll use the same thing against their work login or something like that. Now, let's take a look at a reverse brute force, and it's something else that's very similar to that, password spring. So with the reverse brute force, we already know the password. Okay, so we discovered the password. It could have been in a fragment of data somewhere where the password got revealed, but maybe we don't know what account it goes with. So we know that there are, in this department, let's just put 3 users just to make it simple. We'll take that same password and run it against that user account, and then this user account, and then this user account, and see which one works. And we find out that it works against this last one. We now know that username and password. With password spring, we do know the user account already, but we don't know the password. So now we're going to try multiple password 1, password 2, password 3. And we're just throwing a bunch of different passwords at that account until we finally get one that matches up. So very similar, but they're also still versions of a brute force attack. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from CBT Nuggets. Also, if you're new to IT or are interested in an IT career, visit cbtnuggets.com and sign up for a free trial.